Hi everyone, my name is Dévi and this is Connoisseur. A few weeks ago on TikTok, the trend Thought Daughter was trending and I could not help but come up with my own personal little Thought Daughter TBR. And so here I have a book haul of sorts. Actually, I've only read one of these books. Okay, I'll wrap up the one book for you and then I will be talking about the rest of these books that I hope to read just to get my brain moving, get my brain thinking, get me interested. Yeah, that being said, let's get into it. I am humbling myself by admitting to you that I have not read some of these authors and I need to fix that as soon as possible. The number one author that I am most embarrassed that I have not read is James Baldwin. And I know he's an incredible writer. I know his books are incredibly beautiful. I mean, the quote, this entire political season, the quote of his that has popped into my head constantly is, "I love America more than any other country in the world. And exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually." And that's from Notes of a Native Son from 1955. And I think that is incredibly relevant in today's world. So the one James Baldwin book that I was kindly sent by the publisher is If Beale Street Could Talk. I'm really excited because this new edition with this beautiful art. So it's a 1944 painting by Beaufort Delaney of James Baldwin. I think that's incredible. There's also an introduction in this new edition by Britt Bennett, who wrote The Vanishing Half and The Mothers. I'm probably not going to start here. I'm going to start with Giovanni's Room, which here's a new cover of Giovanni's Room. I'm going to get my hands on this. I will probably pick it up at the store imminently, to be honest. The next person who I've only read snippets of, again, I'm embarrassed to say I've never read this book fully, is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I've had this copy of The Bell Jar since I was in high school. Was totally struck by her fig tree metaphor in this. It's kind of a long one, so I'm gonna put part of it up here. And it's just, anytime I come to question my choices in life or where I am currently, whether I should have focused on something else, lived somewhere else, I think about this fig tree quote. It's really special to me, and I really feel like the rest of this book needs to be read immediately. The next book I purchased when I was in Paris. I've done some traveling since we last spoke. I will get into that more in another video. Yeah, but I picked up The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. It says on the back here, in 3 immensely intelligent stories about the decay of passion from the Sunday Times, London, Simone de Beauvoir draws us into the lives of 3 women, all past their first youth, all facing unexpected crises. In college, I read Letters to Sartre. I've also read parts of Le Deuxième Sexe in college. I studied French literature, if you didn't know. Yeah, so I'd like to read The Second Sex in English, and then also The Woman Destroyed. I think this is a great place to start if you haven't read any of Simone de Beauvoir, because it's broken down into more tangible stories. The next book, given the size of this book, you would be surprised that I am in the middle of it, but it's Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector. And this is literally not even 100 pages, and it's taking me so long to read, and that's because I have to read this out loud. I'm literally sitting in my bed reading this to myself out loud and repeating the paragraphs, going back and making sure I understand each bit, because this is such a beautiful book. It's sort of a fiction book. There is an underlying story in there, but what I would mostly say is this is a stream of consciousness. It's just incredible the way that it's been set up, and I think there's some extremely relevant themes in here so far. Like, there's quotes about the instant that have just struck me. Let me try to find one. And to capture the present, forbidden by its very nature, the present slips away, and the instant too. I am this very second forever in the now. Yeah, that's basically this whole book so far. It's very relevant to my art practice currently, so I'm really excited to have come across this book thanks to BookTok. Grateful. The next book I have already finished. That is A Girl's Story by Annie Ernaux. Annie Ernaux is a French writer. This has been translated from the French by Alison L. Strayer. Oh, I should also mention that Agua Viva is translated from Portuguese, and this specific new translation is by Stefan Tobler. Okay, A Girl's Story. The main premise of this is that Annie Ernaux, looking back 50 years to this summer she had at a camp where she was a camp counselor, and her experience there and how it was very formative. A lot of it is in hindsight, which is interesting. So in hindsight, she feels like she was violated. Based on the way she wrote it, it's definitely a violation of her, and she carries a lot of shame and guilt, and she felt like she has been pushing down this, what she calls the girl of 58, because it's from the summer of 1958, and it was basically her first time having a little bit of freedom. I'll read you a little bit from the quote that they put on the back here. I too wanted to forget that girl, really forget her, that is. Stop yearning to write about her. Stop thinking that I have to write about this girl and her desire and madness, her idiocy and pride, her hunger and her blood that ceased to flow. I have never managed to do so until now. This book was written in 2014. I just think there's a lot of interesting ideas on memory and how society sets up women to fail and places these expectations on us that we should have certain desires and have certain wants and needs, and be grateful for certain attention. This really stuck with me, and obviously it's a nonfiction memoir almost. If you're interested in sort of coming of age type stories, I would recommend this one. And this is my first beautiful Fitzcarraldo edition. The next two authors I'm also embarrassed to say I've never read, but here we go. You've probably seen on social media somewhere this beautiful, fabulous looking cover for Didion and Babbitts by Lily Analik. I've heard very mixed reviews about this. It's basically letters that the two, Eve Babbitts and Joan Didion, exchanged. And I'm very, very interested in this friendship. I consider them to be quintessential thought daughters, if you will. And I also really love reading about female friendship, and I'm interested in the dynamics between female friends and how that can sometimes be very competitive or, you know, frenemy-like, if you will. So that is why I picked this up. I also love like books that are like letters put together or journals. I also hope to get the journals of Sylvia Plath to read soon. Yes, so before I dive into this, I felt like, maybe I should read some of the books these two authors have written. And so I picked up The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion and Black Swans by Eve Babbitts. I figured this was a good place to start with Joan Didion. I'm much more familiar with her as a person. I'm just going to read a little bit of the back. Joan Didion explores an intensely personal yet universal experience, a portrait of marriage and a life in good times and bad. I got married a few years ago. I have a 2-year-old. So I'm very much interested in this perspective on life. This season of life is an important one for people to understand, others than myself too, who's currently in this season of life, to understand. And then this is beautiful. I mean, this cover just like makes me want to drool, to be honest. It's gorgeous. I just love it. This is a reissuing of 9 Stories by Eve Babbitt's from the 80s and 90s. Decades of dreams, drink, and glimpses of a changing world. It will be interesting to sort of tandem read these in a way, especially because this one is short stories. I think there could be a lot of like contrasting points of view on women in this sort of young adulthood, young to middle adulthood, I don't know. Yes. And then follow that up with reading about their relationship. That is my Thought Daughter book haul. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some good recommendations. If you want any more information about any of these books, please feel free to ask me any questions in the comments, any observations, any other book recommendations you have for me. I'm looking for books that really make me think. And I'm not saying that that's, better than other certain books. I just think that there are books for certain purposes. There's some for escaping reality, and there's some for observing reality. And I'm looking for the observance of reality currently. I highly, highly, highly believe in the power of knowledge in our current political climate. And I think that even seemingly unrelated knowledge through fiction, through nonfiction, whatever, can be political. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I will talk to you soon.